Coinbase is making stock market history tomorrow when it goes public as a direct listing on the NASDAQ. It's the first ever crypto-centric company to launch an IPO. It's going to trade under the ticker symbol COIN, C-O-I-N. The company was founded in 2012. It's now the largest cryptocurrency exchange in the country. They have 43 million users in over 100 countries, actually. And this is a significant milestone for the cryptocurrency space. Overall, part of the reason Bitcoin has hit an all-time high today, over $63,000. Last week, Coinbase reported their first quarter revenue of $1.8 billion. Compare that to $1.3 billion they did for the entire year of 2020. Tomorrow, Coinbase could have a valuation of more than $100 billion. $150 billion, that's what Chris thinks. Chris and I were both fortunate enough to track down some pre-IPO shares. Our investment is going to pay off, but the question we have to decide today. Are we going to sell? Are we going to hang on to our shares? To help us figure that out and better understand the various business lines at Coinbase, we've invited Cyril Mathew to join us this morning. Until recently, he led business development at Coinbase. He was in charge of special projects like stablecoins and the Coinbase debit card. Brilliant guy, true expert on crypto and Coinbase. And we're also going to dig into Bitcoin with him and get his take on the 4-year cycle and hopefully get our other infrastructure players and just really help us understand the crypto space. So today on Dumb Money, the $150 billion question. Should we stay or should we go? Our decision to hold or sell on Coinbase IPO day. We are Dumb Money.
3 friends who turned $30,000 into $30 million using nothing more than Twitter and a zero commission trading account.
The suits that work on Wall Street, they call those people with smart money. That's not us.
Our goal is to help level the playing field for everyday investors.
We are Dumb Money.
Hey there, Dave here along with Chris and Jordan. A special Dumb Money Live. We're going to bring in our special guest, Cyril Matthew, in just a minute. But I wouldn't be doing my job as a YouTuber if I didn't remind everyone to help us by gently tapping that like button. It is free. It's going to bring you happiness and wealth and prosperity and good things in the crypto world, all those things. So there you go. Tap the like button. Thank you, Chris, Jordan. Let's first, though, address the conversation that Jordan and I had last week. He is, the more conservative investor among the three of us. He's stayed out of Bitcoin and out of crypto in general and decided not to purchase pre-IPO shares of Coinbase. Jordan, what were you thinking?
Yeah, look, I mean, if I had to make the same decision over again, I'd probably make the same decision. To me, I feel like the price of Coinbase is going to be correlated with the price of Bitcoin. I get that they make money off the transactions, right? But I think that they're going to be correlated with the big boy. And does it stay up from here? Does it go down? I don't know. Like, I can't make a qualified decision on if it's going to go up or down or not. Maybe I'm probably the idiot in the room, right?
We just say you're entirely too rational.
No, I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me, right? So like for me, Bitcoin could be 120 grand, 60 grand, or 5 cents. And each of those makes equal sense to me. So I can't make any judgment on investing in it. So I'm not going to do it.
Listen, we get it. It doesn't fit into the way you evaluate investment opportunities, and it never has. Neither has something like gold, right? And so I totally get it. I think a lot of people are trying to understand how we even got into this whole deal with Coinbase. As you guys know, we are super proactive with everything that we do. We're social arb investors, so we identify change. And then we connect that change that's happening in the world, either change in culture or behavior, or consumer behavior or markets, and we connect that to opportunities. Sometimes those opportunities are trades in public markets. Sometimes those opportunities are investments in private companies or early stage companies. In this case, it was tracking down shares of an IPO, a soon to IPO company, Coinbase, which we do all the time. It's a really difficult process. We worked on this for months, trying to track down shares. We finally, by stretching every person in our network, begging for people to connect us to people that have shares, we were able to allocate and find some shares through a group deal that we did. It was really difficult. We thought at the time we were maybe overpaying for the shares. We were really nervous because at the time we acquired the shares, Bitcoin was going up so quickly that by the time we initiated the conversation about buying the shares, the time that we actually finalize the transaction, it was double. It doubled. The price we had to pay for Coinbase doubled, but we still got Coinbase at roughly a 30, 32, 33, something like that, billion-dollar valuation a few months ago. So, if it does
we didn't
IPO,
know that could have been cut in half. So it was still speculative on our part at the time, because you never know what could happen.
I listen, Dave, I was chasing down that IPO because I felt that we were having a moment with the level of demand going to be chasing down what would be the only major platform crypto IPO of this year. And on top of that, I was looking at Coinbase's quarter based on just general traffic in the crypto markets, and I thought the market was underestimating just how big of a quarter they were going to have. And sure enough, we found out, about a week and a half ago, they just put up the blockbuster quarter of all blockbuster quarters, exceeded everyone's expectations,
completely exceeding expectations.
Except mine, because honestly, guys, one of the questions I'm going to have for Cyril today. Part of the reason why they had such a blockbuster quarter was because a large part of the people that are trading on Coinbase are kind of newbies. They're people that aren't super sophisticated crypto traders, and they trade on Coinbase, not Coinbase Pro. And Coinbase is a really expensive trading platform to use. The fees are really, really high. And one of the thesis that I have that would be a con thesis for holding Coinbase long term is that over time, people will migrate to Coinbase Pro, which is really a much better platform, I think, as a trader, because the fees are much lower. So in addition to that, there's potential competition coming in, right? So why would people continue to pay those high fees? Those are one of the questions I'm going to have for Cyril today. And I have not made my decision as to whether I'm holding or selling. I hope to make that decision maybe by the end of today's episode. And I'm hoping that Cyril can kind of provide us, not with investment advice, because that's not what we do here.
No, just a better understanding.
Just illuminate some of the questions that we have, and help us understand how defensible Coinbase is. Also, are there other lines of business at Coinbase that he thinks has, an opportunity to accelerate over the next 6 to 12 months, so that even if they kind of do lose some market share or have to lower their margins due to competition, even their own competition with Coinbase Pro, as more people learn about that, are there other areas that we can lean on to make up for that? So lots of questions for him today.
Let's bring him on. So our guest is Cyril Matthew. He did spend the last 2 years at Coinbase, where he led international business development, other projects. He has a unique perspective on the whole crypto world. Cyril, welcome to Dumb Money.
Great to be here. Could I give the disclaimer before we even start with him? Neither us nor Cyril are investment advisors. This is an episode where we just want to learn about the platform market for crypto trading, Coinbase specifically as well, and everyone needs to do their own research, right? We don't know. We don't understand what your risk tolerance is. This is all about information discovery, research, and then certainly get on our Discord channel, dumbmoney.tv/Discord, and discuss today's episode, poke holes in our conversation, and show us what we're missing, and then we could all make our own decisions based on that. So, Cyril,
let's start. Let's start with a quick overview of the various business lines at Coinbase, because I know there's some concern about their ability to diversify away from just transaction revenue, right?
Yeah, no, thanks for that, and thanks for having me on, guys. It's excited to be here. In some ways, I think I'm the perfect guest, at least for the title of the show, because I definitely am dumb money. I'm not an expert in investing, but I do know tech, and I've been able to pick some good tech companies to work at, and Coinbase is included there. And
by the way, are you in on this IPO? Like, I assume you got shares when you were at Coinbase, right? Is this a big week for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, part of the reason, and I've been fortunate to work before there at Uber, at Facebook. I kind of used my time almost as investment, if you will, when I didn't have capital when I was younger. So equity is a large part of Silicon Valley kind of background of companies, and so the equity I have in Coinbase, definitely am valuing it, excited for it this week. You never know. I was at, kind of Uber at Facebook when there were IPOs and not direct listings. So you had to wait 6 months, and the IPOs didn't go so well, but in the long run, they ended up fine. So you try not to put too much emotion into the opening day, but the momentum seems strong. So I'm excited about that.
Well, congrats, man. I'm excited for you, probably more than I'm excited for ourselves for the IPO
Thank
this week. Talk to us about Coinbase. I mean, talk to us about what are everyone knows the obvious when it comes to Coinbase, right? Everyone's talking about Coinbase is the first, they're one of the largest, but their fees are really high. Is that sustainable? What does Coinbase look like in a year or two? Is this just hype and just good timing of an IPO, or is there are there other things that we should be thinking about when it comes to Coinbase?
Yeah, no, I mean, they're all great questions, some that I don't have definitive answers to, but I mean, there's no doubt the timing is great. Bitcoin price has been going up. I think we're going to talk a little bit about that later. Equity markets are nice, and then Coinbase, obviously, with the Q1 numbers, just seems to be hitting it at the right time. But when you look at the business, I'm a believer in Coinbase's business now. Whether that means long-term horizon or not, I think we can get into. But a lot of people don't realize just how many layers to the business there are. So you've got the exchange, and so that's akin to the New York Stock Exchange, and that's where all the liquidity is, and that's where all the trades are happening. And then, Chris, as you alluded to, you've got the brokerage, which is Coinbase. So there's Coinbase.com, which is a brokerage, and then Coinbase Pro is the interface for the exchange. And so having both the brokerage and the exchange is akin to having the Charles Schwab and the New York Stock Exchange of crypto, at least in the US. And so that's powerful in and of itself. And you are right. I think the Q1 numbers show that still 96% of the revenues are coming from transaction fees. And so that's certainly something that leadership acknowledges, and there's a big effort to diversify from. But that is, quote unquote, one of the potential risk factors. Now, that being said, you could argue, especially on the retail side, that a lot of people pay for that convenience because, especially in crypto, when in the past there's been hacks, there's been kind of shady practices in terms of where players operate. Coinbase has taken the approach very early on that they were going to be the trusted, the most compliant, getting all the necessary licenses. They've never been hacked, knock on wood. And so there is something to be said of being able to charge a premium for all those things, especially in the crypto industry. So in the short to medium term, I think they can actually keep that sort of pricing control. Now, over the long run, that certainly could be compressed. But that's a bit on the exchange and the brokerage. I mean, we can go into some of their other business lines, such as custody. I think one of the Q1 numbers that came out shows that they had 220 billion assets on platform. The core institutional custody business, the portion of that, I forget the exact number, but it's around 100 billion. And so that's institutions that are coming for institution grade custody that would match the Fidelities of the world, and institutions that are trusting Coinbase to store their assets. It's a lower margin business and a lower fee business, but just like, and Coinbase is not a bank, but just like a bank or any lender out there, having assets on your platform just gives you more flexibility to then later monetize with those assets. So I think that's a underlooked part of Coinbase's business. I could pause there. There's a few different lines that go.
No, I think listen, that's a great point. I actually think the custody side of their business could grow substantially over the next year. I do think, as we start to see other banks getting involved with crypto over the next 3 years, right? 3 or 4 years, that custody piece might not be as defensible as it is today, because today they just don't have a lot of strong competition in terms of, reliable, safe custody options for crypto, right? And so they're in a really nice position, I think, to be the custody leader right now. I mean, I don't know, again, 2, 3, 4 years down the road, I don't know that it matters that much, because I'm not thinking that far down the road. My concern more than anything is going to be other major platforms on the broker piece, the piece where they generate so much of their revenue. I'm concerned about the Fidelity, Schwab's, Ameritrades kind of making announcements at some point in the next year that they are going to aggressively get into the crypto space. Now, it will take some time for that to happen, but I think just the announcements of those transactions, right, of those companies getting involved in the space would be a net negative for Coinbase, because those are the companies that have very little to lose, right? Like they don't have a business in that space, kind of like Robinhood had very little to lose, like coming out with zero commission free, right? Brokerage fees. So that I think is this I don't know, cloud that sits over Coinbase, that at some point in time they have a clock as to develop these other business lines and develop them quickly, right? Also,
Yep.
a big question that I think a lot of people have is, Coinbase is obviously the highest fee, but also has the lowest number of coins. I've always wondered about that. Can you explain the rationale there, and if you think that's going to change as a publicly traded company, if they're going to start to bring on more of these coins? It's a little frustrating at times not having to have multiple crypto brokers to trade what seems like, hey, Dogecoin, right?
Right.
I can't get Doge through Coinbase. I don't understand why.
Yeah, and actually you transition well into a point I was going to make. When you ask about the long-term compression and risks, I think you're spot on. Like when Fidelity, Robinhood, PayPal's into crypto now, Square Cash offers crypto and it's growing. And those are things that will, the Robinhoodization, if you will, of the crypto industry where fees compress are a risk. Now, to play devil's advocate, I think you would argue, because you're deeper into crypto, that Coinbase is lacking assets, right? But if you're going to compare them to a PayPal, a Robinhood, a Square Cash, eventually a Fidelity and Schwab, I'm pretty sure that Coinbase will stay, far ahead of the curve in terms of the number of assets they have to list. Now, when you compare them to crypto native exchanges, a Binance, a Kraken, and a Gemini, that's where they may have less assets. And that's where Coinbase has to play this almost tug of war, if you will, where I started off by saying they wanted to build a moat about being compliant, being regulated. And so other exchanges have done things like Dogecoin comes out, they'll list them, XYZ asset comes out, they list them. And so they're listing 10 or 15 assets per day. Coinbase's diligence process is just a lot more strict, and they have eased that up a lot in recent months, and they are listing assets faster than they have before. But I think they're always going to be in the middle, where you compare them to a PayPal or a Robinhood. I think they're going to be a lot more forward thinking. But if you compare them to some of these, quite frankly, not regulated players, unregulated players, they're going to take a little bit more of a cautious approach. So you could argue that's their sweet spot.
Speaking of regulation, we have to discuss that as a topic, right? That's one of the other, maybe for some people, the number one risk factor, putting a substantial amount of money, or for someone like myself, keeping a substantial amount of money in a platform like Coinbase, right? Not really knowing when or how, when that regulation is coming or how big it will be. I'm sure you've thought about it as well. Do you have any stance on that? Any thoughts on regulation?
Yeah, I mean, you have to think about it. Everyone at Coinbase is always thinking about it, especially earlier on when we're not in the middle of a bull run and it's not top of mind for folks. Getting a banking partner, for example, I think it was Jamie Dimon who or Warren Buffett who mentioned it's rat poison squared, but eventually now JP Morgan or Chase is banking Coinbase. So those evolutions were really important, if you will. Yeah, it's funny, I think, after how you see the about face, but I'm by no means an expert, but what from what we encounter with regulators every day, there's a lot of FUD out there, as they call in the industry: fear, uncertainty, doubt. But maybe this is my bias from Uber, but when you have an asset that's really adding value, when you have kind of a new technology that comes out, I think it was when I worked at Uber, which we briefly mentioned, it was every local taxi lobby and regulator was threatening that Uber is illegal, they're not doing things the right way. But once the people got a taste of Uber, there's really no putting it back in the box. Now, there could be regulation that's unfavorable to the company, but I personally feel, and this is not an expert opinion, but banning Bitcoin is probably not likely. Now, there could be unfavorable regulations, such as like very cumbersome compliance or KYC obligations on any small transaction and those sorts of things. So I do think that's a concern and a quote unquote risk factor for Coinbase in the industry. But I think the days of, we're going to ban Bitcoin outright, I'm not saying that's zero risk, but I think that's a lower risk probability.
But don't you think also that regulation and compliance related regulation could be a net positive for someone like Coinbase that has
Well,
been
exactly.
by far the market leader in having kind of that infrastructure in place and being prepared to handle regulatory compliance. Can you tell us, as a former employee, and I'm not asking you to like knock the company if the answer is negative, but how competent do you think is the management? I mean, just I'm not talking about even top management. How competent do you think is Coinbase in general in terms of the process, the procedures, the infrastructure that Coinbase has built, the internal communication, internal employee morale, the internal degree of talent at the company in terms of mid management and upper management? Can you speak to that? Because I think that's a really interesting perspective that a lot of us just don't have a clue about.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I don't want to be a homer. I could definitely list cons about Coinbase, but starting with the subject that led us here, compliance, that's one area Coinbase can have it, or, put its hat on. It has led with that. They've got really smart folks, got a huge compliance team. If anything, my role was business development, and I would get frustrated that I couldn't move as fastly because we had to check everything with compliance teams, with banking partners. And so I think you're absolutely right. Like, good, smart regulation, I think this is a theme probably with any new industry, is a net positive. Actually, you want that for the industry, and Coinbase would really cheer that on. And I used to work on stable coins, as Dave mentioned, which are the currencies that are pegged to a fiat currency like the US dollar. And we were actually discussing, that was a private issued stable coin that from Coinbase and Circle, but we discussed the approach of stable coins with lots of regulators as they were thinking about central bank digital currencies, which is a theme that you hear a lot. So Coinbase is really, I think, top of the industry in terms of, at least in crypto, of compliance. Now, are there growing pains? Were there growing pains at Coinbase? And, is the leadership used to handling, if it is now a $100 billion market cap company, and do they have that experience? There's certainly, I think are growing pains there, but in terms of how they've led with compliance and being able to manage that, it's been spot on, in my opinion.
All right, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Can you speak to like, just, and if you don't want to, that's fine. Like morale in the company, is it a pretty good kind of corporate morale? Like, what is it like working at Coinbase? Is it a cohesive company? I kind of think of Coinbase, and I think of like, obviously it's a centralized company in a decentralized world, but what does that mean? Like, does it feel like a company even, or because it's dealing with crypto, or is it like a weird, like, I don't know. Well, like, what is it like?
Yeah, it's such an interesting culture because you hit on it. First, there's two factions. I think I used to say when people were interviewing, you've got the people who came from tech, like myself, and then the folks that came from finance and capital markets. And so that already makes an interesting melting pot. And I think Brian Armstrong, the CEO, would lean towards saying it's a tech company that's trying to disrupt finance. But then you've got, as you rightly called out, your centralized exchange is this decentralized world. And so kind of the crypto enthusiast, if you will typically want to hate on Coinbase, saying, oh, well, we don't need central middlemen. And so Coinbase is that entity that we don't want in the long run. But I think when you really get to people who are pragmatic in the crypto space, they realize Coinbase has played a huge role in this on-ramp into the crypto economy. So, unless you're a miner and you had Bitcoin early on, the way to get into crypto is typically you come through Coinbase and you load $100 and you buy some Bitcoin, and Coinbase does that in a pretty seamless fashion, and they've onboarded millions of people into tens of millions of people into the crypto economy. So it's a huge role to play. And so people at Coinbase are passionate about that. They really believe in the mission, and I found that to be the case. I mean, there's been some, I think last year there was some noise. I won't go into the details on, people can look that up, about kind of politics at work, and Brian Armstrong, the CEO, putting out kind of blog post about not wanting too much politics in works. I think it's probably more of a libertarian ethos within Coinbase, and that did cause a few ruffles. But generally, people I found at Coinbase really believe in crypto. They're happy to be there, and you're sort of in the center of a lot of things with crypto. So the folks who are there, I would say, are pretty passionate.
Nice. Dave, I don't know, do you want to kind of move the conversation a bit more into just the underlying fuel for Coinbase now?
Yeah,
Like
because I think
Bitcoin
that's a good kind of overall picture of what's going on behind the scenes at Coinbase. I think, I feel like I am better informed on it now. I did want to follow up on the, Chris is wearing his Dogecoin shirt, and you touched on it a bit, but what is kind of the process, the timeline for Coinbase deciding we're going to allow a coin on our exchange?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a pretty intricate process. They have a DALG, a digital asset listing group, where they have certain principles, and they've actually partnered with other reputable exchanges, the Krakens of the world. I think they're even, don't quote me on this, but we're looking at some collaboration with folks like Square and traditional players on what are these principles by which we measure an asset in terms of security, in terms of how they follow regulation. And so this is why, to Chris's earlier question, Coinbase sometimes is taking longer than players that aren't regulated who can kind of list any asset. Now, one thing Coinbase realized is that once you buy a little bit of Bitcoin or buy a little bit of Ethereum, people want more. And so Coinbase has really tried to speed up and make that process more efficient. And in recent weeks, if you just watch their announcements since I've even left, you can see how many DeFi tokens they've listed, for example, a new token. So I think you'll see that sped up, but it is a pretty intricate process. They can't really take shortcuts, if you will. They can try to speed it up, but if they took shortcuts, there are threats again from banking partners and other counterparties that are critical to their ecosystem.
Can we talk a little bit more about Bitcoin itself, just because that seems to be the headline of all coins, right? And it's making headlines again today as it's hitting all-time highs. Where do you see Bitcoin going when you have, this kind of somewhat predictable 4-year cycle of it halving, and like, can we expect to see that cycle continue? Where are we right now?
Yeah, I mean, the big caveat that, like, I'm by no means the investment expert in Bitcoin, but from my studying the underlying fundamentals, and why I invested probably heavily, more heavily early last year. I had some Uber exposure from my time at Uber, and during COVID, those shares went down a bit, and I decided to make a really big investment in Bitcoin. And I did that. I was watching kind of a few experts in the space and really started understanding the kind of underlying fundamentals. There's probably many reasons why there's a bull run happening now, but I would hit on, and Dave, you mentioned the halving, the key fundamental that I think people don't understand well enough, which is the brilliance of this pseudo-anonymous founder, Satoshi Nakamoto, and the monetary policy that he's built in. And something that's covered a lot on the CNBCs of the world and stuff like that is this notion of a hard cap supply or a fixed supply. And so a lot of folks have talked about there's only 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be minted. And if folks don't know that, that's more and more becoming known. And obviously simple economics tell you if you have fixed supply and the demand goes up, then that asset price is going to go higher. But what people don't get is that every 4 years, this halving happens. And taking a step back, the way the whole Bitcoin system works is these specialized computers called miners contribute their computing power to verify transactions. Every 10 minutes, they're able to verify a transaction. That's how the whole thing works. And all these miners together make up the strongest computing network in the world if you measure it by hash rate. And so the incentive that they get, the reason why they do that is because they actually get Bitcoin as a reward for donating or contributing this computing power. And every 4 years, the incentive that they get for this mining gets cut in half. So last May, the halving happened. Every 10 minutes, the Bitcoin miners were getting 12.5 Bitcoin. That got cut to 6.25. And this is really by design. One of the quotes I have, I think from Satoshi Nakamoto, he was mentioning, one of his quotes from the white paper says, as the number of users grow, the value per coin increases. It has the potential for a positive feedback loop. As users increase, the value goes up, which could attract more users to take advantage of increasing value. So to put that in layman's terms, he wanted to create a viral marketing loop. He wanted bull runs to happen. I mean, we wouldn't be talking about Bitcoin today if this bull run wasn't happening. And that's the way that the network attracted more users. And so both for that halving principle, and then if you just look at Bitcoin, it's a short history, it's only 12 years, but if you look at the previous halving cycles, generally after a halving happens, about 6 to 18 months after that halving is when you see a bull run. And there's a few models out there. The followers on the channel could go to a guy named Plan B on Twitter that has a stock to flow model that measures scarcity and flow, which is the new production every year. And you'll see, again, the 6 to 18 months after the cycle, the stock to flow model follows pretty closely. And if you correlate all that together, what it tells you is we're about a year after the last halving. And if you follow, again, if it's following the previous cycles, we're probably just in the earlier stages of the bull run. The later stages of this bull run has not happened yet. And so that's why there is a lot of hype. And of course, the macro conditions have changed. There's more institutional demand now. So I don't know how that impacts it, but just following previous cycles, it tells you that there's probably a little bit more of this bull run left. And actually the most exponential parts of the bull runs happen near the end of those cycles, not near the beginning.
I was trying to see if I could pull up a chart that represents that, but I'm not finding one quite yet.
I have a few, but I don't know if I can share my screen. But yeah, I can share it to you guys after to flash up.
You know, I mean, that's a great point. So listen, it sounds like you're pretty confident or feel pretty good about Bitcoin's kind of momentum this year, which would serve, like I said, it's like the underlying fuel for all these exchanges, including Coinbase, and it's a hell of a nice tailwind to have. One of the things I'm thinking about, excuse me, I'm trying to figure out, is there any arbitrage left in this? Are there things that the market still underestimates with Bitcoin? Excuse me, with Coinbase? Are there things that the market still misunderstands? I felt strongly that the market misunderstood the degree to which Coinbase was going to benefit from this massive run up in Bitcoin this last quarter. And that's exactly why I chased down shares in this pre-IPO. And that's what happened last week when they came out with earnings, right? So that was great news for Coinbase. I think that's probably going to lead to probably a 20 to 30 or 40% higher IPO day than we would have had without that really strong earnings report.
Yep.
What is there anything else out there that maybe the market doesn't, and that was a good point. I mean, you just brought up something the market maybe misunderstands, right? Like, is there anything else out there we should be thinking about the market is just doesn't quite see clearly? Or are we getting to a point where with all the hype, Coinbase has reached kind of that point of information parity where whatever it trades at is based on full information. Everyone kind of knows the pros, the cons, and whatever IPO day is, it is. And for me, that's a sign that I should start looking for an exit, not because the company's bad, but because there's really nothing that I know about that everyone else doesn't know about. And if so, what are the other platforms? That's my next question for you, because I know you've been kind of thinking about this for a while. Where should we be looking next? If we're going to try to chase down private shares in mid to late stage crypto exchanges or the picks and shovels in this business, do you have any favorites as someone who has worked in the industry, worked at Coinbase, has seen, you're in biz dev, so you know the players out there, right?
Yeah.
Who piques your interest right now? What's the next one that we should be going after at Dumb Money to try to obtain shares in right now?
Right. No, great question. On the former part of your question, or is there anything else that should be factored in? I would just stress that point where I don't think I know the public markets haven't seen a company that like Coinbase that's been public through one of these full cycles, right? And so I think if it continues, again, follows past trends, Q2 and Q3 could be larger, which could be really interesting. And I'm curious to see how markets react. At the same time, as we've rightly discussed, Coinbase is tied to those market cycles a bit. So if you see the cycle tail off at the end of the year and have one of those pronounced drops, Coinbase could be affected by that too. So that's the last thing I would point out there. One on the cycles. One other thing I would point out just about Coinbase's business is just how much institutional demand has come to the platform in the last really 6 months. And I think it's a little bit kudos to the Coinbase's M&A team. They made an acquisition that was probably not very talked about last year of a company called Tagomi, former Goldman execs that started this institutional trading platform that's been built into Coinbase's stack. And this is why the Michael Saylors of the world and the Teslas of the world have bought have made some of their positions into crypto through Coinbase. So I think that's just something I would call out, and it'll be interesting to see how institutional demand, maybe dampens these cycles or prolongs these cycles. And so that's the last factor I would call out in terms of overall factors. To your question, Chris, about other players, I mean, there's tons. So I won't go down the rabbit hole of these early stage DeFi players, which I think people should, just look up decentralized finance and pay attention to, these basically decentralized capital markets that are built on top of Ethereum. But at later stage companies, I think, or mid to late stage companies that I personally follow really well. An interesting one is called BlockFi. So BlockFi is, again, another centralized player, but they're letting you do more, if I call banking type activities and money movement type activities in the crypto market. So the simplest form is just earning yields on my crypto. So I could go into BlockFi and put in a few Bitcoin, and I can get, I think up to a certain amount, 6% yields on my Bitcoin. Or if I put in stable coins, again, those coins that are pegged to the US dollar, USD coin, or I think there's a Gemini one, you can get 10%, up to 10% yields. And that's been a super interesting business. And then the other part of the business is probably a larger part is, let's say people don't want to sell out of their crypto because they're what we call hodlers. They believe in the long-term appreciation of Bitcoin. Well, how do you get some liquidity? BlockFi will let you put in crypto collateral and take out loans in US dollars or euros or pounds or whatever a local currency you're in. So a way to get liquidity, but still hold on to your price appreciation of your assets. And their business has been booming. And they have competitors like Celsius and Nexo and a few others as well.
Can you talk about how that high yield thing actually works? Like how are they able to offer that kind of extreme, yield on both stable coins and Bitcoin? They're basically loaning out those coins for others to then loan out again. Yeah. Like, to me, it seems like a kind of an unregulated loan pyramid scheme, right? Is that somewhat of an accurate classification?
Not unregulated. So again, the continued caveat that I'm not the expert regulatory wise, but I know, for example, using the BlockFi example, they do have state lending licenses they go by and get. They're not a federally regulated bank by any means, and so they don't have the same stringent requirements that a bank has, but they do have state licenses, and so you'll find BlockFi is not available in certain states. But to your question, Dave, yes, they do. Obviously, to get those yields on the deposits, they do have to then lend out your crypto, and so that's one of the mechanisms. That's what banks have been doing for decades, right? And so fractional reserves. Now there is probably a more aggressive strategy that BlockFi employs, and I encourage users who are really interested to go look up. I think BlockFi. There's been some few YouTube podcasts on it where they do a little arbitrage on the Grayscale GBTC trust, where those institutional investors that put money into the trust can get a discount on that investment and end up arbitraging there and getting a little premium. And so from what I understand, I'm not the expert here, they use that as well to kind of pump up the returns they get. In addition to that, they're also VC backed. So I don't think profits today are the number one driver, but user growth is. So there's great questions, though. There are definitely some risky parts of the business.
I opened my BlockFi account, and then I started seeing these videos on YouTube warning me about what might be, done behind the scenes. And so I haven't funded it yet. So I just wanted to hear from someone who's kind of worked at one of the largest exchange, and that to me is very interesting. So you think it would be okay for me to fund and park some Bitcoin at BlockFi?
He's not going to give you any advice, Dave.
I'm not endorsing any particular platform. I just say, like, if you were an investor in their platform versus putting your money in it, it's interesting because you just look at their user growth; it's been exponential. You look at the assets on platform; that's been really large as well.
Yeah, they're another company that I would like to invest in.
Yeah, BlockFi is on our radar. We've been trying to track down shares unsuccessfully. Not yet, right? So like any other either exchanges or any other infrastructure providers that kind of sit behind the scenes of the crypto market that you think are interesting right now?
Yeah, the other ones I would call out, and by the way, Coinbase, we didn't cover this. Coinbase could also play a role in this space as they may have a competitor on the brokerage side, but then they can provide that competitor with custody, and liquidity on the exchange, right? And so Coinbase
Good point.
will eventually do some of these things. But a company that's really focused on being the infrastructure player, one that sticks out is Paxos. PayPal's crypto offering is actually backed by has Paxos on the back end, powering liquidity, doing custody for them. And I think eventually we'll be doing other things. And Paxos, I believe, is also doing that for a fintech in Europe called Revolut, which is very prevalent here in Europe. And so Paxos is one of these infrastructure players. There's another few that on the payment side are really interesting as well. Circle, which was a partner of Coinbase, is basically building a Stripe for stablecoins. And caveat, I'm currently employed by Stripe, but Circle's building USD coin, which is one of the most, it's the largest regulated stablecoin out there, 10 billion market cap. And it's really used a lot in DeFi markets. It's used a lot for trading and other use cases, but Circle's providing ways to accept USD coin as payment, to settle in stable coins, which is, could be a lot faster. If you're in FX markets and you're used to T+2 settlements, if you're using stable coins, you can now get settlements that are same day or within minutes. And so I think Circle's a really interesting company. Another one that's smaller than Circle is called MoonPay, that are, again, building kind of these back-end infrastructural things that allow you to accept payments, that allow you to take settlements, that allow you to do KYC out of the box and these sorts of things that'll then power, I think, the next wave of fintechs that want to build crypto and use kind of some of these picks and shovels that these companies are offering.
We have a lot of people mentioning Voyager in the comments. They're publicly traded. They're smaller, obviously. I think it's a company that has gotten a lot of attention, being one of the few publicly traded exchanges. Any thoughts on them? Do you know anything about Voyager?
I'm not actually too familiar with Voyager, so I couldn't, weigh in. I probably should know them, but I see the comments that they're regulated in New York, but it looks like they're also providing interest. I'm not actually sure about their business model, so I couldn't comment on them.
Yeah, I have some Voyager stock only because I felt the momentum of expansion of investor awareness of Voyager, and so for me that was kind of my primary reason for investing in Voyager, not necessarily based on fundamentals, obviously, because I don't do that. But Paxos is like my number one target right now. So I want to make this very clear. If anyone is watching this show that has Paxos shares, that is interested in selling Paxos shares, we are a buyer. Okay, we are a buyer. We will transact really quickly. We are really easy to do business with. We are a buyer in the 7-figure range for Paxos private shares. So if you have some, please email us, chris@dumbmoney.tv. We would be happy to enter into conversations with you if you have some Paxos shares. So putting that out there. Okay.
That's great.
We've talked about a lot. I mean, is there anything left on the table to cover right now, guys? And in the comments, is there anything that we missed, guys, that you want us to address with Cyril while we have him on? For those of you that don't know, he spent years working at Coinbase in biz dev. He understands this world really well. We so appreciate having him on the show today on the basically the eve of the Coinbase IPO. Is it tomorrow, guys? Is today the 13th?
Yeah.
It's tomorrow on the eve of the Coinbase IPO.
It is tomorrow.
We stand. I think the IPO will be. I'm targeting it at about 150 billion. That's what's in my head. That would put us at a $2 million gain in just a few months. It's a big day for us. I imagine it's a big day for Cyril as well, who's been there for a few years. So I assume you have some shares. What else do you guys want to ask Cyril? Oh, ask about Stripe. Okay, why Stripe? Why are you at Stripe? Do you love Stripe? Tell us about Stripe.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Coinbase has built a great business. So why would I make that transition? A lot of folks have asked me, and I do think I have a good eye for where tech is going and kind of new trends. And so Coinbase is building great business. The part of crypto that really interested me and that I'm passionate about, it was really when I was at Uber before Coinbase, where I learned how integral money movement and payments are to any business. As Uber was launching in new markets, we were interviewing drivers, and some of them working in the UK were sending money back home to other markets like Morocco or somewhere in Africa. And some of them were still actually literally giving a bag of cash to a random courier to send this money back home. And I was just astonished that this was still happening in this modern day. And so you could argue I probably went two steps too far in terms of crypto, but I thought crypto could be really interesting to solve some of these problems, and I still think it is. But Coinbase's business today, I mean, is rightfully so, because it's where the revenue is coming from. Is very focused on trading, enabling institutional use cases, and they're definitely doing some things in payments. But the part of crypto that I love and that I think will eventually be disrupted is giving access to the unbanked, or moving money around the world, remittances, for a lot cheaper, a lot faster. And I mean, there's no one, I think, in the world doing that better today or solving that mission in kind of the current financial system than Stripe. And so I was just intrigued, and really, I'm still learning in my career, and I wanted to come to Stripe to kind of understand the current financial system in and out. And, you know, my longer term goal then is like, how do those two worlds combine? Maybe crypto can disrupt certain elements, and, you know, hopefully I can help Stripe do that and embrace the parts of crypto that are doing that. But that was the reason why I made the hop.
That's awesome. Stripe, guys. I don't have any Stripe. We haven't tracked down those yet, so that's something that should be on my radar as well.
Yeah, I would buy Stripe for sure.
Well,
there's one other that people are asking us to ask about, and that is a Coinbase competitor, Kraken. There's talk that they're maybe going to do a SPAC or an IPO probably next year, not this year. What are your thoughts on that? And are there other players in the space that you see, you know, on the track to an IPO?
Yeah, I mean, Kraken is a great company, and one I would put at the top of the list. I sort of separate the players. The largest exchange in the world is Binance. You know, by volume, they're not what we call the fiat exchanges. They do have some ways to put in your fiat, but they're also operating. This is not a knock, but they're operating in, you know, sometimes in regulatory gray areas. And so when I look at direct Coinbase competitors, I put Kraken at the top of the list, because both of them are players that look to be, you know, regulated in the US, get all the necessary licenses and those sorts of things. And Kraken has built a really great business. Two people I really respect in the industry, I've learned a lot from. There's the head of growth, who used to be an Uber colleague, named Dan Held, writes a lot about Bitcoin on Twitter, and has a blog post that talks about these halvings, and if anyone is interested should follow him. And Jesse Powell, who's the CEO of Kraken, is really interesting. And they really, by volume, are probably, in terms of, again, that regulated by number 2 to Coinbase in the US for that fiat to crypto volume. Again, that's where you're taking in the dollars and buying Bitcoin, buying crypto. So I've heard rumors that Kraken, I think probably off the back of this news of Coinbase, is looking at a way to potentially go public. And I would be a big fan. I think there's room for Kraken, and I've heard lots of compliments on their UI and their platform as well.
Yeah, they were the second platform that I got on, and I had a Binance account at one point. I've kind of shuffled around and been on all of them, but obviously Coinbase was my very first, because they made it so easy, and that's one of the reasons that I love it as a company and as an investor.
We were a little slow, so Kraken had shares available to purchase through one of the secondary market exchanges about a week ago. Maybe it was a week and a half ago, and I actually, it was through Forge. And for those of y'all who don't know, I know there's a lot of questions as to, guys, how do you get these shares? Well, for us, Coinbase is a private transaction. You know, we found a group of sellers and we were able to acquire that. But also, sometimes there's secondary markets. Forge is one of them, and they were offering Kraken shares at $47.37 last week. The company's most recently formally announced financing round was at $19 per share in 2019. So in about a year and a half, a little over doubled, but that's really not that big of a deal when you think about how far the crypto market and the Bitcoin market has come, right? So I think those shares came and went, guys. I think we missed them. I was slow to react to the email. I should have jumped on it quicker.
Actually, I just logged into their website, and they're still showing it as available, but that may just be.
Are they? So like, I just sent another email to my rep there, because she never got back to me. My concern, the reason why I don't like purchasing shares through a secondary exchange platform like Forge, I understand they have to make their money. but those fees are really high. They'll charge like sometimes I think they'll charge, I could be wrong, 15 or 20% carry. So like they're taking basically a fifth of the upside on the trade, plus they generally have a fee of like 2.5%.
They have an upfront fee, I know. Yeah, I don't know that they always have a carry, but I know that they have an upfront fee. At least some of the other shares that I've bought from them, I know that
everything we've done with them has a carry.
Yeah, I think they have a carry, and I imagine on something as hot as like a Kraken, I imagine they would probably have a carry on that as well. And the fact that she didn't get back to me, Dave, I think they sometimes leave that stuff on their site. Yeah, they usually want to close that stuff pretty quick. So, listen, Cyril, thank you so much. I do want to say that Cyril, if anyone wants, has a connection that is looking for someone on a podcast to talk about Bitcoin, crypto exchanges, Cyril, why don't you give out your handle on Twitter? Is the best way to follow you and connect with you? Is that right? Is it Cyril Matthew?
The Twitter handle. Sorry, Twitter handle is at Cyril Matthew.
Yeah, CYRILMATHEW at Cyril Matthew on Twitter.
We will put it down in the description after this. For the archive of this, it's down in the description.
Great, and I put it in the notes earlier, or the comments earlier. Cyril, thank you, man. Congrats. This is an exciting week. I hope tomorrow goes well for you and for us.
Thank you, guys.
We'll talk about what we're going to do after Cyril leaves. We'll let him go, and we'll talk about what me and Dave are going to do tomorrow. I kind of have it in my head. I think I have my plan now. And Cyril, your kind of information solidified what I think I'm going to do tomorrow. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Great to be with you guys.
Soon.
Take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Appreciate it, buddy. Congrats.
All right,
man,
that was great.
Do you remember early in your career when you had some shares in a company and like back in like 99 when I had shares in Cars Direct and I was like 21 years old and I thought I was worth $9 million on paper, and then the dot-com boom busted like right before the IPO, like a week and a half before the IPO, and my shares were essentially worthless.
Well, I mean, it happened. If you had shares of anything during the dot-com bust, like I was an employee at Yahoo at the time and had just been given all these shares. The day they hit the S&P, it was up, up, up. And then within that year, my first year of employment there, where I hadn't had any of my shares vest, the thing just collapsed. The whole, Amazon collapsed, Yahoo collapsed, all of the tech companies just, fell out of the sky. So,
well, hopefully that won't happen between today and tomorrow.
I feel like we're in a different time right now.
I think you're okay.
Oh boy. Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to ask him how much he has, but I would imagine, just looking at how much it appreciated over the past 2 years, the guy's got to be in really good shape.
Oh, I forgot to ask him because we were talking to him before the show. He basically has had a career of working at companies right as they IPO. He was at Facebook for several years.
Yeah, he's a pre-IPO employee, right? It's awesome.
Yeah.
That's his trade, man.
Yeah. He's an important job. Yeah, doing business development at these companies right as they're going into their stride. Yeah, it's amazing. Good for him.
Genius.
It's smart.
It's so genius. All right, Dave, do you know what you're going to do? Are you going to keep your shares tomorrow, or by the way, we don't actually have our shares yet.
I'm definitely keeping them until they make it into my account. I'm not planning to create some kind of false short. You're not going to be able to short shares anyway, right? Because there won't be any float. So
we're stuck. I'm
stuck holding them until they actually make it into my account. And at this point, at this very moment, I'm holding. I'm hanging on.
Yeah, I was going to ask you structurally, how does that work with the direct listing? Because whoever you bought them from has to get them and then transfer them. Is that what happens?
They'll transfer them. Yeah, they have to transfer them over afterwards. They have to get them and then transfer.
Yeah. So that's about it. I mean, I'm imagining a couple days delay, and I don't know if there's any holding requirement that we have on these shares. I'll have to read into
with a direct listing. I don't
but
think there is, but I could be wrong.
There's none.
Yeah.
There's none, Dave. And I'll tell you what, I am going to probably sell
Are you?
75%, 75, just 75. I mean, you got to realize it's a monster position for me.
You're right. You're right.
So
I need to look at them as a percentage of my overall portfolio and whittle them back to where I would be comfortable buying them, right? Like I would probably buy $250,000 worth of Coinbase tomorrow. And that is probably where I'll hope to net out is keeping $250,000 worth in my portfolio.
Yeah, I'm Dave. I'm kind of in the same zone. I think I would like to have $250,000 to tops $500,000, and at $500,000, right in that range, $250,000 to $500,000, that'd be like I get to sell 75% and I'd still have that much of Coinbase. So yeah, I'm probably going to sell 75% of my position next week or whenever it is that we get those shares. And the reason why I'm selling is because, you know, there are risk factors, right? There are perceptional risk factors. It might not even be real. Just any type of spookiness related to either Bitcoin.
Even the price of Bitcoin, down. I think, is going to be one of those things that the price of Coinbase is not going to be a direct correlation, but fairly heavily impacted by movements in Coinbase or in Bitcoin. So if Coinbase starts to like basically mirror Bitcoin, you're basically holding a bunch of additional money in something that isn't actually Bitcoin, but is essentially the same thing.
But also any type of negative news related to the regulatory environment. Listen, it doesn't take much. A single statement by the government, even a statement by someone, a key person. You saw what that did to Bitcoin a few weeks ago, right?
Yeah, look, every time Yellen comes out and says something that you see a little drop, it's recovered every time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Or more any type of rumor or statement by a major broker, a top 4 broker that says, hey, they're going to get more involved, you know, as a broker for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Like that would be perceived as a negative. I think there's a lot of stuff that there's risk factors this year, right? But more than that, I feel like the market understands the positives for Coinbase. Like the positives are out there. That monster quarter is out there. Now, I do agree with Cyril that the next couple quarters could be even bigger and likely will be even bigger. So it's like,
yeah, dude, I think that we could have a couple of quarters of news cycles where everyone's caught off guard by how insane their revenue was once again, right?
Yeah. Oh, someone's talking about customer service, and that I didn't bring that up with Cyril, but that does bug me. But it also bugged me about Robinhood, and it doesn't seem to bother anyone else. Like I had an issue getting money transferred into my Coinbase account. It was a lot of money that I was transferring into Coinbase. I was wiring it. The wiring instructions were so confusing. Like it wasn't clear, and there was no like messaging as to when the wire would hit. It was like, just check back with us in a week. I was like, what? Can you imagine wiring $1 million and not being able to confirm with anyone that the wire hit? Because once the wire hits, they don't tell you. It takes them a week to get it into your account.
It's immediately taken out of your bank account, and then you don't see it in your Coinbase account right away. That's surprising to me.
I don't know if someone,
I didn't have that experience.
I don't know if something happened. Like it's really, really, really frustrating. And you can't pick up the phone and talk to anyone at Coin. I mean, hey, I just sent you $1 million. Can I talk to someone? Nope. There's no one to talk to. In fact, I couldn't even really communicate with Coinbase via like messaging, because at the time I did this, it was one of those weeks when just crypto was going nuts and they were so backed up. They were taking days to even get back to someone. So it's like the Wild West out there, and it's a little frustrating. But then again, they're competing against other people that are doing the same thing, right? So like, it's okay to do that in that world, right? Like, it's not like there's someone else that has excellent customer service in the crypto exchange world, right? Someone's saying Binance is better, and perhaps they are, but I don't know. The thing is, I just don't know if there's a ton of information left to arb right now on Coinbase, so I don't want to be super concentrated in it, right? Like I don't feel that confident in it. I want to have some position, but not nearly as big as what I have. I'm really happy about this trade, guys. If this thing IPOs or DPOs, whatever, between 100 and 150 billion tomorrow, I think we're going to hit 150. We'll see if I'm right. I think 150 is in the cards, and if it is, man, that is going to be like almost a 5x return on a pretty substantial investment over just a few months.
Yeah, it was not a long holding for us. We didn't really know how long this was going to take. The question that I've seen a couple of times, what time do they list tomorrow? So because it's a direct listing, the shares probably won't be available right at the opening bell, but I'm reading that it's kind of more expected in the midday or afternoon time frame. Because of the direct listing, that's when employees and other insiders have the option to sell existing shares rather than the company issuing any new stock, as would happen with a conventional IPO. So...
By the way, I want to say I forgot
get these things. Do they have to go to an account, or can they just say, "Hey, liquidate them on reception"? Or do we know?
I have no idea. We kind of lost our opportunity to ask Cyril how that's working internally.
Yeah.
By the way, I gave out the wrong Twitter address. It's actually Cyril J Matthew. So it's CYRIL JMATHEW on Twitter. By the way, guys. Gosh, I lost my train of thought.
So as far as I also saw some people asking where we bought our shares from. We bought them in a private transaction, not through one of the brokers. It looks like a lot of people are wanting some of these pre-IPO shares.
A little late.
well, here, listen. I think no, there's no way to get pre-IPO pre-IPO shares now.
Ship has
but
sailed.
Tomorrow, listen, tomorrow is likely to be a really big day. I would not be surprised to see it hit 150 billion. I'm pretty excited, guys. I hope it sticks around for a week until we get our shares in our brokerage account. Oh, this is what I want to say. I made a decision this last week. You saw this, Dave. I am having all of my shares of Coinbase transferred immediately into my charitable foundation. So this is another trade that I'm donating 100% of to pediatric causes through the Camillo Foundation, and I'm really excited to do that. It's a big win for the foundation. So I'm kind of doing that with almost everything right now, but certainly this is a big one. So the foundation might be $2 million richer tomorrow.
The foundation is doing such good things for actual people compared to paying a huge amount of taxes that who knows what they're going to do with the money.
Yeah, so that's what's so cool is that there will be no taxes on this huge gain, but it's not my money. Like I'm not taking the money. I'm just saying, hey, just throw it over there to this foundation that's going to give it away. So listen, I'm really excited. That's why I'm so excited about this week, is like, that's crazy. That's like a lot of money. It's going to do a tremendous amount of good. And I'm just super excited about it. So positive day tomorrow. Let's everyone hope for the best for Coinbase. Okay. I will sleep tonight, but have a little bit of anxiety throughout the day tomorrow. And probably for the rest of the week, hoping this thing kind of holds and sticks.
We'll be watching very closely tomorrow.
Yeah. Well,
are we going to do a future show on? We talked about it before the show. That J&J news. What are we going to be doing a show on that? On what that might mean for reopening stocks?
Maybe we have an episode on Thursday, but I really wanted to do a different episode on Thursday. We have a high conviction report. That was put out within our. We won't say which one it was. It's in our Discord channel. For those of y'all that aren't in Discord, by the way, something really exciting. The Dumb Money public brokerage account, right? The portfolio launched last week. I bought $10,000 of stocks based on your votes in Discord. So dumbmoney.tv/Discord, you can actually vote every week on which high conviction tickers you want to purchase in the Dumb Money public portfolio. And you guys are going to get to keep all the proceeds for that. Do what you want with it. Have a party with it once a year, right? Like so that belongs to the community. So I'm trading every Monday. I'm rebalancing the portfolio based on the votes. And if you go into public, please get an account on public, because every time you open an account on public, if you do it through Dumb Money, Dumb Money gets paid an affiliate fee, and we take that money and we put it after taxes into the Dumb Money public portfolio. So it's like, we're not taking any of the money, we're just giving it back to you. So let's see how many people we can get to sign up for public, okay? What is the link, Dave?
To do that, you go to dumbmoney.tv/public, or you can go to public.com/dumbmoney. Either way will get you that. I have not yet logged in to see what we bought in the public portfolio, so I'm going to be doing that. And I think to be able to do that, you have to basically log into the public app and look for Dumb Money.
Yeah, and you know what? I've been I traded on public last week, and it's actually really fun. It's kind of like Robinhood. It's just so ridiculously easy. I think it's really weird. After every trade, they ask you if you want to tip them, though. So,
well, that's because they're not doing the payment for order flow thing. They were one of the first to announce that. They don't make any money on the transactions, and so their only way to survive as a business is asking for tips, I guess.
I am so curious if people are tipping them. I am not tipping them with the Dumb Money.
You're not tipping them with
portfolio. No, I don't think I have the right to give away the community's money. So I'm not doing that. But hey, guys, it's a $10,000 portfolio. It's going to grow over time. The more people that sign up for public through the Dumb Money link, the more money they give us in our portfolio. So just everybody go right now, sign up, right? We'll have that link for you guys. Go public.com/Dumb Money and sign up through Dumb Money, and we will make the money and we'll put it in the account. Once a month, we'll make a deposit based on the affiliate check that comes in from public. And listen, you all win. Everyone wins.
You bought all of these stocks? That's a really nice portfolio.
Well, listen, it's what the community voted on, right? Like, so basically, I balance exactly what you vote on. So if one stock gets 70% of the votes, I put 70% of the portfolio in that stock for the week. And so I think the top stock, Dave, has like 15% or something like that of the portfolio.
It doesn't show how much of each stock. It just shows that it exists in the portfolio, and then it shows what today's price is doing. So of all of the things in the portfolio, only 2 are red. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's like is it a dozen different stocks?
This is a long-term deal, guys. This is like something that we're going to be doing for years. I have this kind of, vision in my head or hope that we can grow that portfolio into $1 million portfolio for the community. And if the community does a good job with it and they're generating like 15 or 20% returns a year, and you can do that because I generate, 85% returns a year, that would be like couple $100,000 a year that the community gets to blow on a ridiculous party someplace, right? Or
whatever they decide to do with it.
Cruise, whatever they want to do.
Can you imagine a cruiser's going to cruise Dumb Money party? That would be amazing.
Yes, I could. Speaking of parties,
so if you want to follow us on if you want to follow us on the public app, our handle is @dumbmoney, and we have 357 followers. We're going to see how that grows over time. If I'm at Dave Hansen on the app, and I have 16,783 followers. So Dumb Money team, get out there, start following the Dumb Money account.
Yes, but don't sign up for public randomly. You have to sign up public.com/Dumb Money, because that way we get the credit and then you get the money in the account, right?
Yes.
That's how you.
And I think you get a free stock, or they have some promotion when you sign up that you basically don't lose anything by using our link. The same offer that everyone gets, you would get from us.
Yeah.
And
guys, yes, you can pick the charity. You can do whatever you want. Once a year, we'll figure out what we do with all the earnings from that account. We won't think about that now. Anyway, guys,
and I will put the public link down in the YouTube description, so you guys can find that. I'll also put, I think we already have all of our dumbmoney.tv links. I'll add a link down in the footer of the dumbmoney.tv page so that you can get to our public sign up as well. And that's the latest from here. Is that what we're talking about? Oh, you want to talk about Thursday's show?
Yeah, man. We have a lot of work to do between now and Thursday, because Thursday's show is a big one.
Oh, I know what show you're talking about now.
It's a
I'm excited
really
about this
good
one.
high conviction report. Yeah, I think we all have something to say about this. I'll tell you right now, I already put money into this high conviction report. I'm contemplating how big I go on it, though. Like I still am I haven't quite figured that out, and so I want to have a debate on Thursday, and I want to just there's so much to talk about when it comes to this high conviction report, this stock, this trade. We will see you Thursday, but hit the bell so you are reminded about Thursday's episode. You don't want to miss it.
I haven't bought any yet, but I'm fixing to.
Even
Fixin'
Jordan.
to. I want to see you buy some Coinbase stock. That's what I want.
Yeah.
I got some for sale, Jordan.
That's the thing. You guys are selling, so why would I be buying?
I'm not selling all of it, dude. I'm selling some of it. Most of it, yeah, some of it. But I'm still going to have quite a bit when I'm done selling. So,
okay.
All right, that's going to do it for
sizing, dude.
That's going to do it. We are Dumb Money. We'll be back here Thursday with a show you cannot miss. Smash the bell.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya.